Hey, Craig, it looks like we've got about 28 people that have joined us today, which is a decent turnout. Yep.
That's
yep.
great. That's great.
Just a reminder what this master class is about. It's really an overview of the Winthorpe process and what design build really is. And I know we've had a lot of questions, understanding the design build process and how we use it and how many other companies say they're design build, but in reality, they're not. And we're going to go through, if you're looking for a design build company, the questions you sort of need to ask and how you can find a true design build company that's going to do it the way design build is supposed to be. So those are the questions. We'll go through several different stories that will sort of see how design build works into a real project and really how many of our clients have responded back and why it's been such a positive change for us. About 18 years ago, we went the design build route after some challenges early on, doing it the old way. And so we'll discuss all those things. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put it right up in the chat box. I do think in this particular master class, we're pretty much going to answer most of the questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think there'll be many questions at the end. So let's get into it and let's discuss what design build is and is it right for you? I think one of the most recent examples of somebody finding out what design build was Brian. He was a new custom build, and he reached out to us because obviously Winthorpe Design Build. So when he Googled it, he came up with 5 names, and we were one of them. He looked through our website and saw some of the things that we did and understood our process. One of the things that he found out pretty quickly was that just because you have design build in your name doesn't mean that you're really design build.
Surely a design build.
Yeah. I know that he had told both of us that, he'd read a little bit about design build. He'd never really done a large project. So he wasn't familiar enough with all the right questions to ask. But he certainly, I know when we did our Zoom with him, we probably spent about 45 minutes and we were describing what we can do and how we do it, our process. And I know then he was sort of surprised that I think he had talked to 3 other builders at that time, and he was sort of surprised what we were saying we did and what they said they did. And I know that 2 of the other builders, even though they said they were design build, they really just had sets of plans. And that was it. Pick your set of plans that you like. This is what we're building. This is what we're putting in there. I think they had a couple of choices with cabinets and tile and stuff, but there really wasn't much selection, and there was no changing in the house. So there was 3 of us left. The next person would make some changes to the drawings, but it was very minimal. It was conservatory on the end, a library, but they weren't really changing the walls inside. They weren't changing anything structurally because they already had that set. They built it a couple hundred times, and
it was something in their library that they had done, and just chopped it off one project and added to this one.
Yep.
Not truly customizing for the client.
Now, and then it came down to us and another company that's well known in the area, and they basically said, we have a couple architects, we can send you there, you go with the architect, you design everything, bring the plans back, we'll bid them, and then we can build it. And we know that from past experience that really design, bid, build it's old fashioned and really doesn't work. It's not really the system that is, I'll say, best for the client and really best for the builder, because there's just confusion. There's no single point of contact. There's just, there's so many different things that can go wrong with that process, and many delays. We know that there's several delays. So when we sat down and talked to him, well, this was many months ago, but when we sat down the last time before he made his decision to go with us, we really explained some of the main points of design build and just why that process, no matter if it's a large project or even just a small project, it's really the way to really build residentially and commercially.
We were able to sit down with him and just start really from scratch and find out the way his family lives, what he was looking for in the house. And under one roof, we started putting, you say pen to paper, but we started getting into the CAD system and started designing the space. And it was truly a custom design. We were also able to start working through the costs.
Yeah.
Which is also, again, under one roof, you're looking at designs, costs, how is this going to be built? And we have the ability to do all that in-house. And so it just makes for a more seamless and better process.
Yeah.
For
I know
the client.
Yeah, I know one of the things that Brian reached out and said, after when he called and said, I'm going with you guys. The main thing that I'll say that you emphasized and that we talked about several times with him was this one point of contact. You if there's anything changing or anything that he wants to change, he calls us. It's not, oh, do I need to call the architect, or no, I need to call the engineer. No, I need to call the civil engineer. No, I need to talk to the project manager on the site. We're everything's under one roof. It's one place to contact. He's a very busy person. He and his wife are both professionals, and they don't have time to spend, I'll say, wasting time. Like, oh, now I called, I wait 2 days for the architect to call me back. Oh no, you were supposed to call the engineer. That's not really what I do. That's really the civil engineer. No, you call one person, we take care of it. And it sort of leads me into, well, we started Winthorpe a little over 30 years ago. And we started out doing, well, working with an architect, them sending it out to bid, usually 4 or 5 contractors all bidding on it. All of us seeing things that weren't necessarily shown right on the drawings, and not intentional by the architect, but they're trying to get the drawing done, they're trying to get it out for bid. And the problem that we saw immediately was each time those drawings were sent out, I'll say, whatever preliminary estimate was given, we don't really know how the architects came up with their estimate, but we know that typically it was at least a third less, if not half less, of what the actual bids were coming in. And so then right then, someone waited 6 months to have the architect draw it up, or designer. And then it got sent out for bid, which usually takes a month, 6 weeks. Then they get all the prices back. So they're 6, 7 months into this now. And they're finding out, now I gotta pay somebody to redo the drawing.
Everything's coming in higher than anticipated.
And no one's happy about that. So now you're paying the designer or architect to redesign to what you can afford.
Cut things out.
And I know Brian, one of the things that he really liked is that every stage, every change, what the cost, the budget range is, the investment level, so that there's no guessing. It's like, okay, well, don't draw anymore this way because this is pushing me out. Or you know what? Wow, this is less than I thought. let's continue to go this way and let's make it a little bit larger. And you get a lot of feedback when people know what the price is and what their investment level is going to be.
Absolutely. We're getting a set of plans in the old days. But knew nothing of the client, what they were looking for, what was their main focus of this project, what were their goals. We're just getting a set of plans. Here, we're taking the time to build that relationship, get to know what they're, how they live, what they're looking for, what are the important things for the family, their lifestyle and how they live. And we're putting that into the plans and we're working through the different pricing. We know the cost. We're doing this every day. So we're using real-time numbers and putting those in place for the project that we're designing so that we know and our clients know, well, this is how, like Scott said, this is how this change or this adding this to the design is going to affect our pricing. So what better way to make decisions than know in real time what the costs are for those, if any, making those.
And Craig, how many times, not to interrupt, but how many times just made me think of, well, many stories when we first started out, where the drawings would come back from the engineer and it would totally change what the designer or architect drew. And then all of a sudden now there's a beam going through here because the architect isn't always thinking structural, he's thinking aesthetically. And if you're not thinking structural, aesthetically, and also how it's going to sit on the lot, you're losing part of what is important to how that project's actually going to go together.
And if you don't know that through the design process, you're just gonna add that and it's gonna affect the project. But we've already looked through it, we've incorporated things into our design. So we know that, okay, this beam or there's an alternate way of building it. That we can incorporate that into the design, so it's not even an issue. And then the engineer's fine with it, and it's there, it's priced. You're ready to go. Let's
No
keep moving forward.
surprises, no delays.
Exactly.
It's funny because I know you and I have talked about this several times. It took us about 5 to 6 years to, not that we didn't realize it right away, to switch over to bringing everything in-house. And I know every time we talk to a client, we say, why did it take us so long to do that? But also, why isn't everyone else doing it? And I think there's a lot of different reasons. I think that ultimately it's easier. You stay in one lane, you do just construction. It's more of a challenge what we do. We bring our project managers in as we get more detail on the drawings. So we're getting their input because they're out building every day. So, we're all putting all of our thoughts together so that those plans are as thorough, and there's less chances once we start construction for surprises to happen. And what better for the client, for us, the project moves smoother and there's less delays and less things that can come up that makes the project, the process less inviteful, less. People want things to go as smooth as possible, and that's what we want.
Absolutely. And thinking through the project is key. Again, how is it coming together? It's crucial part. We start with initial renderings of how it's going to look in our drawings, and then we review them with our clients. But then the key is how is it all coming together? But so when we're doing that first stage, we're saying, okay, here's this wide open space. Hillary was a perfect example. She wanted an open kitchen and there were some large stands. And so while I'm listening and hearing what she's looking for, I'm already thinking, how are we going to start opening this space up? How are we gonna eliminate beams, or can we do some decorative beams, incorporate that into the project? So again, because we're doing it through the entire project, it just never hurts to start thinking day one on how it's coming together.
And one of the things that we discuss everyone right up front is the advantages of design build and why design build is the best process. No matter who you choose, make sure that they're truly a design build. They're not going to send you over to an engineer and then send you over there. Everything's under one roof. You make a single call, and that person's going to be able to maybe not answer your question immediately, but they're going to be able to get to the person. Is it the project manager? Is it the interior decorator? You know, who is it? But you have one single point of contact, and then the answers flow from there. And then that way, we know that communication is probably the most important thing, which is one of the reasons we use Buildertrend. But also, if you're asking different people, everybody sort of hears a different answer. And so if it's all through one person, we know what it's supposed to be. And our whole team knows what the ultimate, I'll say, whatever the project is, how is that project supposed to be finished? And like you said earlier, what's important to those clients? Everyone on the team knows that, from the interior decorator to the project manager to most of our subs, and then to everyone else that's involved, the civil engineer, and where do we need to place different things and stuff like that. So discussing what design build is and how it can work on renovations and new build is what we try to emphasize every time we talk to a new client. And I think one of the perfect, I'll say, projects that showed how design build really can not only save you time, but also allow the client to get exactly what she wanted. And I know when we were out there with Lucy and we were standing up on the third floor, one of the big things was being able to see the park behind the house. And there was a tree and a pond, and we knew that was very important to her. As we were putting that 3-story addition together, we knew that we wanted those large picture windows, and we knew that most of the area was glass, but they also wanted to have that focal point of the fireplace. And I know as we walked through the property, seeing it being framed, which is another thing that we emphasize, is as much as you can be involved, we want you out there. And maybe it's not always out there because we have clients that are not always in the area, and so we'll Zoom with them and we'll do a live Zoom, and that's always nice because we can show them what we're talking about. I know on this particular project, we heard what Lucy had to say about where things were, and I know you came up with a solution almost immediately, and which was the fireplace that that was really blocking the.
And that was, again, we knew that we were the family was spending a lot of time in the family room, and they wanted it to be able to have it open to the screen porch area, and the fireplace was centrally located, a great view from the family room and the interior space. But when we had started building the home, and it was how it was set on the property, you realize that's when we see, wow, we really want to take advantage of this view. And unfortunately, the fireplace was blocking a portion of it. So just by relocating that over to the corner of the deck, it opened up the entire rear view from the living room, from the kitchen area, even from the screen porch area. And so that one worked out well. We were doing the walkthrough at that time, and that's when they realized how the house was sitting on the property. And it just made sense to move that over, a minor change, but just makes the world difference.
Yeah, and I know Lucy couldn't have been happier at the ability to just go ahead and draw it up, change it, and now they had a view of that park in the back, and they could not have been happier. I think another great example of how design build works was with Janet and the butcher block top, and how you came up with a solution, because I know she'd seen that butcher block top at a friend's house and she loved it, but it really didn't, it didn't fit into her budget. And I know you came up with a great solution for allowing her to get what she wanted.
On that one, that was a pretty, like you said, it was, I don't want to say a budget buster, but it was
Close to it.
it was higher than the really what you wanted to spend, and we were able to outsource, not outsource, but find an alternate source for the perimeter cabinets, the countertop there. And our supplier had a looked the same, but at a great price point. So we brought that to her attention and got her approval, and then she was able to save some money over on this side and spend it on that butcher block.
Yep.
And the project turned out great. She loves that kitchen.
Yeah, and I know at the end, you know, when we did the walkthrough with her, I mean, I mean, it's a nice contrast with the other, but
Pulls it all together.
yeah, but I know that I know she was a little concerned about switching that brand, because that was a selection she made early on in the project. But she couldn't have been happier with it, and realized that it wasn't as noticeable. I don't think it was noticeable at all. I mean, it was a slightly different color, but the overall pattern and everything was the same. So I know that she couldn't have been happier, and she was, you know, a little fearful about making that, but she said, I know she said to me, Craig told me it was going to be good, and it was, and she couldn't have been happier at the end. Another another client, John, I know when he sort of went through the same process as Brian, which was, you know, do I hire an architect first? Do I, you know, do I get a designer involved? How do I work through this? And I know that he was a little reluctant to go with us. We explained the design build. We explained we do it all in house. I think that a lot of the things that we told him made him more comfortable. But I know even when he said, okay, let's do this, he was still a little unsure about how it worked, because all the projects he had done in the past were design, bid, build. And he didn't think that they had gone well, but that was the process that he knew. That's what he was comfortable with. And I know as we started going through the details, I knew when you sat down with him and explained that, okay, we've designed this with your input, and ultimately here are some of the details that we came up with. It was right after, I think, the second update on the preliminary plan. And I know he said to you, I always felt like when I was with a designer, I think he mostly worked with architects, but it was their vision. It wasn't his, and he felt like he kind of had to fight for what he was looking for. And he was so happy when you're like, no, we can do that, and I'm going to tweak it a little bit so that it works with your house, but we can do this.
Right. We're always gonna sort of make suggestions or bring our experiences into the design, but ultimately it's how do we make the best of both worlds?
Yeah.
Again, it's the way he knew what he wanted
Yeah.
that space to look like. And it's our job to bring it together for him.
And ultimately, we're gonna do what they want. I mean, if
Oh,
we
yeah.
think it may not work, we're gonna
100%.
point it out, we're gonna say this floor plan, you know, maybe it's a little more awkward than what we would suggest. But ultimately, if that's what they want, we're gonna do what they want, and I know he said many times through that whole process was. He was so happy about the input that he was able to say about the different sizes, and he didn't really do anything awkward, but we have had some clients that have done some things that were a little challenging, door swings and things like that, but ultimately, we're gonna do what you want. It's your vision. It's 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 how you want to basically either live in your new home or the renovation that we're doing. Uh, and I know that he was happy that he was part of that whole process, where he felt like in his past projects, I think he said he had done 4 or 5 previously, and he felt like he was kind of told, here's your drawing, this is what you're gonna do. Then it's handed over to the builder, and the builder kind of does what's on there, but he says, well, this doesn't work out exactly right, so I switched this window over a little bit and.
Just think about all the time that's wasted and downtime. Okay, here's a set of drawings, stop. Then here's the bid process, stop.
Yep.
You gotta go back for revisions and back and forth, and then over to engineering. Where in-house, the design build process, it's all seamless, it's happening, it's saving time, saving money. And getting the project, again, ultimately, you're part of a team. That we're all working together to build that project.
And a good point that you just made was is it's all happening at the same time. The selections are happening while the construction drawings are being drawn. Everything's happening so that it's not, oh, let's wait and go here, then here, and then here. Oh, let's hand it over to the interior decorator. Now let's wait 2 months for her to get back to us. Oh, guess what? This fixture isn't going to work out with the way this design works because the handles are going to hit the back wall. So now everything needs to be adjusted. No, everybody is here and we're all discussing things and, oh, okay, we have the same faucet and a different handle, and now this will work fine. Or, you know what, we do adjust it, but we know up front, it's not when we're putting it together, we realize, oh, these handles don't allow the water to turn on all the way because they're hitting the backsplash.
Thinking through the project is key.
Knowing what the
Everyone
selections are, right? Yep.
Is on board.
Uh, the project that we did down in DC that was a 3rd-story pop-up. It was the first in really that 3-4
row
block
homes,
area.
yeah.
So they were a little leery about doing it. They understood to a certain degree what needed to be done. I know when Nick reached out to us, it was, I know what I want to do. And they knew why they needed the extra space. The
Absolutely.
family
Some
was
bedrooms.
expanding, right? So the challenge was how do you get up to the 3rd story? What do they lose on that 2nd story? But also, I know his big emphasis was I want it to look right, and I don't want it to look like something that's just stuck on top here. And I think he saw one. I believe it was in Northwest, but he said they sided it with white siding, and it really stuck out like a sore thumb up there. And I know you came up with some really unique selections, and also it allowed it to look like it was done in the 1920s when the original house was built.
And we did that with, there's 2 challenges there, and the weight, the thickness of the party wall between the houses that we had to continue up, and
Yep.
we were very limited in space. And so by coming up with a solution of a cut brick and painting that brick, it fit in perfectly with the neighborhood, the curb appeal. You really couldn't see that brick that much, so putting money in a place where you're not getting a
And
return
it was
on that.
painted too, so I mean,
Exactly.
that was another.
So then with that savings, then where you could see from the street,
Yeah.
the slate roof, we were able to put that in. Versus trying to change over the materials to something that was a lower price. We said, let's put the money here.
Yeah.
And so the whole project just worked out well.
Except for being a third story, which we have many of those pictures on our website. It looks like it was done in the
original,
1920s,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
because the materials all match, it
Blends it
comes
really
up.
well.
Yep, the front of the, I know one of the changes he did make was, he's like, let's just paint the whole house, the front and back. We already had it in for the third story, so all the paint was the same color, which really kind of made it aesthetically pleasing when you stood from the street, so.
The other item with that project was the changing the existing front facade of the home. We needed to add a stairwell, obviously, to get up to the third floor. And typically what you'll see is, well, we'll close in this window area and we'll build a stairwell here. We were able to incorporate that window into the design. Yes, we had to temper that window because
Yep.
where it was located in the stairwell, but we kept that in there and really didn't change anything structurally. So we saved some money there. I didn't
It looked great
fill
from
in
the
and
front.
just
Yeah,
yeah.
no changes to the front, which,
It matched again with the homes down the line.
and one of the things that he did say to me at the end, we were just, I like to call and reach out and just say, how did you feel the process?
Sure.
So that we can make changes or tweaks. Now, one of the things that he did say to me, which I don't even think we mentioned in our process, is that we are reaching out at different mile points in a project to see how we are doing, to see what changes do we need to make during the project. I mean, we don't want to know at the end that we could have done this, or I know one of the challenges, especially in DC, is the parking spots. And we had someone say, on this day and this day, we go to the store. So do you think you can make sure that the HVAC guy isn't in the spot? So we made sure, but it was because we reached out and said, is there anything we can do differently? That was one of the things that they said when we come back from the store. Now they were able to move and then we could get back there, because obviously we can't park 2 blocks over and carry tools and things. But when they came back at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we made sure that they were able to pull, and then they could get their groceries in the house, and then we could get back in there.
It's all part of the communication. One point of contact, we're on the project, our project managers are on the job. They're not going from job to job, so you have that communication there. We encourage the walkthrough of this project, where they're living in the house during the project, or if they're coming to see.
Yep.
And stop by, we encourage that. Getting that information, getting another pair of eyes on the project, and getting that feedback that you're mentioning, how things are going, what can we do to improve?
And one of the other things that he pointed out at the end, which was no change orders that were, let's say, contractor driven. Really no surprises. We had thought through the whole process. There wasn't anything that came up that we said, oh, the only change orders that were done on this project were really, well, not really, they were client. Yep, and it was things that they saw as it went together. They wanted to do a couple things different, but it was very minimal. And when we were just talking about sort of our process and how he felt that it was, said the other projects that he did, everything seemed like it was a surprise. It was, oh, guess what? Now we need to do this, and now we need to do that. I think it goes back to where, if you're not thinking through that whole process, it's hard for you to come up with all the answers. So basically what happens is one person draws it, they hand it off. Now the contractor, he's thinking, okay, this is how I'm going to build it. But it's not until I get to this point that I'm thinking about, oh, okay, how does this go together? And that's where these surprise change orders come up. This is where things go over budget, because you're 3/4 in, you're not changing. Well, most people aren't changing contractors, the architect's already there, they're on to their next project, they're drawing whatever they're doing. And now it's kind of you stuck working it out with the builder, and the builder saying, well, this wasn't clear on the drawings, I didn't know that we had to do this, and because no one's really thinking through the whole project. With the design build process, we're thinking through the whole project. From day one, when you start the preliminary drawings, you're thinking, where is this beam going? Where is that going? So that we don't have those types of surprises that come up. And that was one of the things that I'll say Mitten really appreciated about our process is that there weren't surprises, and really the change orders that happened were driven by him and his wife and things that they wanted to change. So I think that's a key point to design build and how it can really just make things move so much more smoothly. And another, I think, great example of how we were able to sort of design on the fly was when we started that demo at Hillary's kitchen that was on the water. And really, we started to remove the walls. We knew what the space was going to kind of be like. I mean, we'd obviously drawn it up. They weren't living in the house, so they, came by usually every other day. Dave was able to talk to them, and basically, as they really saw that area open up, I know that the windows that were existing, which they wanted to keep, because I know there was a process to go through to get the acceptance of really making changes to the outside of the house in that community.
Yeah.
But we realized that we really needed to make that change, because as you walked in the front door, some of that wall was really blocking that view to the outside. And I know you were down on the project. You did a quick video, sent it to Hillary, and said, "Hey, I really think that we should probably rethink, keeping these windows." And then I know you set up a meeting with her like the next day, and she came out and said,
Well, we had to get creative with the windows, the spacing, and like you said, we were restricted in the community with the exterior elevations we could not build out
right,
from the footprint of the existing house. So we found the windows that fit perfectly in there with full view, and it's maximized as large as possible, and yet we still had to then create the structure.
that's what I was just gonna say. I know that beam that we
Exactly.
had been designed to go across the back that allowed us to open up that whole kitchen area to make it one large room, their eating area, their sitting area, and the kitchen.
Eliminated the post and figure out a way to, like you say, how are we supporting this? And then I was able to get some renderings together and get them over to her.
Yep.
And she loved it, just full open view out onto the water.
And I know one of the things that she said, not just during the project, but also at the end when we send out our well, we sent out a little questionnaire at the end that we just asked them, how can we do things better? We also do that throughout the project, as we discussed earlier. But at the end, it's kind of like, okay, now we're done. Let me digest what's happened for the client, and give us your honest review, because that's the only way we can better ourselves. I know one of the things that she reached back out and said is the fact that we were able to make that change so quickly, really accommodate what she wanted.
The ultimate goal.
And they did several other projects. And one of the things is she felt like when the builder started the project, and I'll say this is the case with a number of builders, the goal is to finish. It's okay, I've got this set of plans from the architect. This is what I'm doing. like you said earlier, there's no input, so they don't know what's important. You knew when you went out on the job to walk through, but okay, these windows are not accomplishing, now that we have all the demo done, this is not accomplishing what we've talked about for the last several months with her. I think Dave actually brought it to your attention originally, which is why you went down, and then as you stood there, well, as soon as you walked in the door, you called me and said, Scott, we've got to do something here. And the fact that we brought it to her attention and not just kept building, she approved the drawing, she signed off on everything. We're trying to make that project better all, well, throughout the whole process. And I think that she really she understood the design build process, but then she saw just how we went, I don't want to say over and above, because ultimately we want to give them the right project. We're just doing what we know that they wanted. And we realized quickly that what was going on was not going to accomplish it with those existing windows.
You hand somebody on the design or the architect bid and build process, you hand them a set of plans, they're gonna build that.
Yep.
They're not thinking, well, this is what was on the plans. That's not who we are, that's not what we're gonna do, and that's what we're not, it's not what we're about. And like you said, it's what's gonna make a better product and a better project.
The other thing that she mentioned at the end was she really liked how, well, how we were accountable for everything. We didn't say, oh, I didn't know this code. As things were happening, we were pointing out, because obviously we couldn't see inside the walls. When we demoed, we knew that some of those wires had been run by somebody else at a different point in time, had not been run to code. So we knew that those things were going to need to be changed. We didn't just put it back in the wall and cover it up. We said, this really, this was probably before you purchased the house. Somebody came in here and pulled these wires through, and they didn't want to do drywall repair, which we see all the time. And I'm sure they wanted additional light, because I know one was overhead. So the fact that we're showing them and understanding, and also understanding how where she lived is different codes and wind shear and different things are expected there versus obviously in different parts of Maryland and DC, you don't have all those different things. And she appreciated the knowledge that we had and how we're involved every day trying to find out what are the changes or what are the changes going to be.
And keeping up to date, being informed is key for us. And so that's our responsibility. It falls on us. And so, again, incorporating all those things, setbacks and sizes of, latest thing is the accessory dwelling units.
Yep.
And what are the sizes that we can have? How are we going to do this project? How will it fit? And how will everything will.
And each county is different, and
exactly. So
yeah.
Ultimately, it weighs. It's our responsibility, and so again, there's no pointing of fingers. Oh, you built this house.
The architect didn't put it on the plan, so I didn't bid it. So now, no, it needs to be done, and ultimately, it's our responsibility.
Another advantage being this the one-stop shop.
So a great client, Kim, who we did build an ADU for. I know that there was a lot of different challenges on that particular project. I know that ultimately you came up with a preliminary plan that worked with the footprint of the house. And I know she said almost immediately, no, I want 2 bedrooms, I want an office, this is my chance. This was a little unique. They were going to actually live there. And so they were really building this as sort of their forever home, as I like to call it. And they had, well, she had a lot of things that she wanted in there. Yeah, I know she wanted the freestanding tub, so that made the bathroom a certain size. So we were way outside of what the parameters were to build an ADU with the footprint of their house.
Exactly, it's based with. The detached ADU is a formula that's based on the size of the existing home and the footprint of it. And it varies from county to county, so. We've got it, again, goes back to that knowledge and the research that we've done, so. We're submitting those plans. We wanna make sure we're doing it right. And in this case, it needed to be 50% of the footprint of the house, but that was the maximum, and she wanted to. To put a small little office space, she even had in there, a 2 bedroom, 2 full bath. And so we needed to add a little bit
And
of,
a full kitchen and a full sitting area.
yeah,
And so it really, it ballooned into what it wasn't like I want this, it's, I need this, how do you make
Sure.
it work, right?
yeah. So just by adding a little bit of space up at the existing house. We were able to maximize the square footage and get everything into the accessory dwelling unit. And she also, at the existing house, we built out a small conservatory sunroom area. And so that worked out well for the county.
Which she loved, too.
Yeah,
It was
Yeah.
adding space to the house that they really wanted, cause it overlooked the
Yeah.
pool in the backyard, which was great.
and it just, it updated the existing house. And so really they got 2 projects in one. A great home that they have, the main house, and then the accessory.
And I wanna just add this on the end, one of the things that I know originally was she had reached out to a fairly well-known architect in the area, and they had looked at it, and they pretty much told her this is the size. She then Googled again and came up with our name and reached out to you, and I know right off the bat because she told me your wheels were already turning. Okay, how do we make this happen? How do we make this larger? How do we and so I'll say this, a lot of times, you know, you may get a no from a builder or a designer or an architect, and don't just take that as a no, because usually there is a way to make things work out. Sometimes there's not, but usually you gotta think outside the box, and you gotta say, okay, how do we do this? We have so many projects that are outside the box that's how we think. We think, okay, how do we make
How do we
this
get it
happen?
done?
We don't think of no,
No, we
no.
can't do this.
Yep.
How do we get it done?
which I think the more you do design build, the more you're always thinking, how do I make this happen? Not the easy things to say
Right.
no. And then it's like, okay, well, what is, I mean, no is, okay, I'm just gonna move on to something that's easy that I do every day. We like those challenges. We're excited when we're doing something different, which is why we do custom homes, truly custom homes. We haven't built the same home in 30 years, and there's a reason for that, because every one that we have is
It's different.
it's completely different, and it allows us to think differently on every project. So I think those were some I think that really shows what design build is. It shows what our process is to get to that design build. We didn't really hit on everything. I mean, we could have talked probably an hour about Buildertrend and how we use that and how people really enjoy it. And it's a great program. You can snap a picture. You're at a party. You're at someone's house. Hey, I love this faucet. You put it up there, and then we're able to research and find that faucet. And it's a technology that's great because it's 24/7. You're able to post questions. You're able to, you think of something. You're watching a movie and you say, "Wow, that kitchen's really cool in that movie." Take a picture. We've had people do it, 100 times and send it up there and say, "I'd like something close to this, Greg."
It's an excellent system for tracking a project. It helps scheduling of the project. There's so many different things that we can incorporate in communication. messaging, things like that. So it's
And
well worth-
selections too, selections, I mean, we've had a lot of feedback. They're able to see what's there, they're able to see the costs, they know exactly
Right on
where
their
they
phone.
are. Yep, you can do it,
tablet.
yep. Desktop,
So-
you know, wherever you are, it's right at your hand. So I hope we've touched on everything. I don't see any questions. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like I said earlier, if you do think of anything, you can always, you know, shoot us an email, give us a call. We're happy to talk about our process and why we think it's really, well, we think it's the best. We think design build is really the way things were. I know you and I talked before we started this masterclass. That's how things were. Things started out design build. They always were that. They were called master builders. Then we went through this whole process that we need to separate out the designers from the builders, and that's sort of where we are. Craig and I both got our start sort of in commercial, so we saw how design build works in commercial. Commercial is design build, and it's taken a slow path to kind of get into residential again. But I do think that there's a lot of companies that are doing it the right way, and you can tell it's the right thing because how many companies are saying they are, even though they're really not? Why would you say you are, except you want people to call you and then you can talk them into, well, yeah, go to the architect, go to the engineer, and then we'll build it. But you call yourself design build. So anyway, that's really all we have for this masterclass. And I just like to say, you know, if you're thinking about a project, certainly give us a ring, reach out to us. We can explain, you know, most likely you would probably talk to Craig first. And he'll explain exactly how our process can work with whatever particular project you're looking for.
Absolutely. We just want to, you know, hear a little bit of your ideas and how, you know, your vision for the space and what you think it would look like. And then we're also incorporating again how that's affecting the budget and how that would all come together. And it just starts with a phone call, and we'll talk about the project and start gathering information and seeing how we can help.
Yep. You can fill out the contact form. You can pick a time that's best. Craig will give you a ring, or just you can just pick up the phone and call in, and we actually just answer the phone and say, you know, what is your project? So I appreciate everybody that joined us today, and if you're watching this on tape, same thing goes. You can, you know, think of any questions that you have. You know, shoot us an email. It was good seeing everybody today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next masterclass.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great day.